Imagine this is your home for the next 3 months. It's early December in the rugged Sierra Nevada mountains, and the snow is relentless. Your only food is what you can trap. Your only warmth is the fire you must keep going. And by the way, you're alone. Welcome to Moses Schallenberger's home in the winter of 1844. In November 1844, the Stephens-Townsend-Murphy party became the first immigrants to successfully bring wagons into California. However, since many of their oxen had died or were injured, they had to leave 6 of their wagons behind. After helping the party cross the summit with 5 wagons, Allen Armstrong, Joseph Foster, and 17-year-old Moses Schallenberger agreed to build a cabin at the east end of what is now Donner Lake and stay with the remaining wagons. They built a crude 12-foot by 14-foot cabin in which they planned to stay until the advance party returned. None of the 3 men had any experience with winter in the mountains and expected that the snows would soon melt. But that was not the case. The snow would soon be 10 feet deep. With continuous snowfalls and diminishing food supplies, they decided to try to cross the summit and rejoin the rest of the party. With crude but mostly unusable snowshoes, they began the arduous climb to the summit. Unfortunately, young Schallenberger could not make it due to exhaustion and leg cramps, and returned to the cabin. For the next 3 months, Moses would live in complete isolation. Moses would spend his days trapping foxes and coyotes for food. At one point, he even shot and ate a crow. While he never really ran short of food, it was a constant source of worry for him, as he writes.
As soon as one meal was finished, I began to be distressed for fear I would not get another one. My only hope was that the supply of foxes would not become exhausted.
During his isolation, his diet consisted solely of meat. No bread, no salt, no vegetables, just meat. To pass the time, Moses would read books from the large collection that were left in Dr. John Townsend's wagon. But even then, the isolation and loneliness were overwhelming, as he would share in his memoirs.
I used often to read aloud, for I longed for some sound to break the oppressive stillness. For the same reason, I would talk aloud to myself. At night I built large fires and read by the light of the pine knots as late as possible, in order that I might sleep late the next morning, and thus cause the days to be shorter.
But in the end, his concern was not for himself, but for those with whom he had journeyed almost 2,000 miles.
My life was more miserable than I can describe. The daily struggle for life and the uncertainty under which I labored were very wearing. I was always worried and anxious, not about myself alone, but in regard to the fate of those who had gone forward.
At the end of February 1845, one evening just before sunset, Moses sees the form of a man moving towards him. It's Dennis Martin, one of his traveling companions who has single-handedly returned across the Sierras to rescue him. In 1850, when his sister Elizabeth and her husband, Dr. John Townsend, died from cholera, Moses adopted their infant son. In 1854, he would marry Fannie Meade Everett, and together they would have 5 more children. Moses, a longtime resident of the area, died in San Jose, California in 1909 at the age of 82. In 1846, 2 years after Moses' amazing ordeal, the Patrick Breen family of the ill-fated Donner Party would spend almost 6 months in the same cabin.